Now that we've done all that hard work on making our spreadsheets look real nice and ready to go, Unit 6 is going to focus on, well, how do we get all that information in the system, in the computer, out and looking great when you print it. So that's our focus for Unit 6, printing. Now, before we actually print out our spreadsheets, it's probably a great idea to make sure everything is properly set up before we print it. So one of those tools we're going to use here before we print is called the spell checker. And if you ever use the spell checker in Microsoft Word, it works very similarly here in Excel. Now we're going to go over here to a review tab, and we're going to find it as the first icon in the ribbon here under the review tab. If you'd like, you can also use your keyboard shortcut F7. That will start the spell checker as well. So I'm going to start here in A1, and I'll click on my spelling right here, the first icon. That's going to effectively comb through my spreadsheet and look for any possible errors. And I've set this spreadsheet up with a couple of different errors just to demonstrate here. So the first thing it comes across is cell A2. It finds what's not in the dictionary, which is quarterly, and I want that to be changed with, of course, a suggestion down here, quarterly. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll click change. Okay, the next one that it picks up is actually the last name for one of my employees here, and now I happen to know that this is spelled correctly, and this is a common occurrence with the spell checker. It's going to think one of the names is spelled improperly, but it actually is correct. So in this case, anything that is intentional and is not misspelled, we can go over here and use our ignore buttons. I can either ignore this instance once, or if I expect this to be misspelled multiple times in my spreadsheet, like I have down here, we can ignore all of these instances. So that's what I'm going to do in this case. We'll ignore that. I have another instance here with another employee. I'll ignore all those, and the last one here as well, I'll ignore that too. So that's going to wrap up our spell checker. Now we know everything is spelled properly. I'm going to click OK, and let's talk about a couple other things that we can do in order to finalize our spreadsheet before we hit the printer. So our next tool I'm going to show you is the Find and Replace tool, and on your ribbon, that's going to be up here in your Home tab again. All the way on the right, the binoculars icon, that's your Find and Select. If you like the keyboard shortcuts, remember Control plus F is for Find, and Control plus H of all things is Replace. So I'm going to start here with a Control F to do my find, and it will open up this window, Find and Replace. Now I've got to type in there what I want it to search for, or I can click on my Replace tab here, and I can add the functionality of replacing whatever I'm searching for with the intended data. So that's what I'm going to do here. Let's say one of my employees here, Tyrone Macha, let's say, maybe he got promoted, and his replacement is Rob Haywood. So I'm going to go in here next to Find What, and I'll type in Tyrone's name. Make sure it's spelled 100% correctly, otherwise it's not going to find it, of course. And then I'm going to replace it here with Rob Haywood. Okay, now you have a couple options. First of all, if I click on the options button, that's going to give me some more controls to play with, and this is kind of nice, especially if you want the data that you replace to kind of stand out a little bit more so people can see the new additions or the new changes. That's what I'm going to do here. In fact, I'm going to go to next to where it says replace with, I put the name in there, Rob Haywood. I'm going to also make this in italics, so every time it finds Tyrone, it will replace it with Rob's name, but also make it italics. So I'm going to click on Format. This will open up the Format dialog box. I'll go over to Font, and I'll make that, let's say bold italic. That might look nice. I'll hit OK. And now I've got to replace all or replace. The difference is replace will go one by one by one, and it'll find every match separately, so you can choose which ones you'd like to replace, which ones you don't want to replace, as opposed to replace all, which will just go through the whole spreadsheet, find every instance, and replace all of them. Okay, I'm going to do replace all in this case, and it says it's made 2 replacements. I'll hit OK. I'll close my Find and Replace, and I'll notice that the first and last name were the replacements, and we can easily tell because remember I made them bold and italic, so they stand out quite nicely. Okay, Now I'm going to switch over to a different worksheet that I have just to show you some other preparational tools here. This spreadsheet tracks all my bonus sales for some of my employees again, and let's say I've made all the adjustments, I've done the formatting, I'm ready for this to hit the printer. I always recommend that you do a print preview before you go ahead with your print, and this is easily done because in 2010 it actually combines your print preview with your print. So what do I mean by that? If I go up to my File tab and we go down to our print icon here, and you'll notice I get all my settings here on the left, including the printer, how many pages, and we'll go through these in one of the other videos coming up here. But what I want to focus on is the print preview here on the right, and this shows us how our page is going to come out physically when we send it to the printer. And lo and behold, this commonly happens. We get 2 pages when we think we actually only have 1 page that's going to print. And if I click on that next button, or the little right triangle button down here with the pages, that will show me the second page. And this isn't what I want, right? It's going to come out to 2 extra columns that are hanging off that really won't look good when I print this. So this is going to act as kind of a preview to our next video, and that's going to show us all the different methods that we can use to get around the instance when you have stuff hanging off or extra pages printing that you don't want.